There comes a time in life, often after 55, when noise no longer comforts and company no longer fills the silence inside. It's not sadness. It's not loneliness. It's something deeper. A quiet return to peace. Inspired by the ideas of Carl Jung, this video is a gentle journey inward for every woman who has given everything to others and is now ready to come home to herself. There is a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full of stories never told, full of laughter that never found a voice, full of tears that dried before they could fall. And it often begins around the age of 55. That's the age when the world starts to grow quieter around a woman. Children, if there were any, have grown and gone. Spouses retreat into their own private worlds. Friends scatter, following the winds of their own lives. And suddenly, you're left with yourself. At first, it can feel like a void. The house echoes in strange ways. The phone doesn't ring as often. There are no schedules packed with obligations. No one urgently needs you. No one calls out your name. But slowly something shifts. The silence, once deafening, begins to hum. Not loudly, softly, like a melody you haven't heard in years, but somehow still remember. Carl Jung believed that around midlife, a woman begins to turn inward. Not by accident, but by necessity. The first half of life is about building, family, career, identity. But the second half, the most sacred half, is about returning. Returning to the self. Not the woman others needed you to be. Not the mother or the wife or the caregiver. But the soul that existed long before anyone placed expectations upon you. In this silence, she begins to whisper again. Do you hear her? It might begin with a sense of unrest. A question forming at the back of your mind. Is this it? Or maybe it comes as a longing, not for people, but for peace. A quiet place where you can finally breathe. Finally rest. You begin to notice things you had forgotten you loved. The sound of wind through trees. The way your hands move when you're not rushing. The calm that comes with not having to explain yourself to anyone. There's power in that. You don't have to earn silence. You don't have to perform for it. It simply comes like an old friend when the noise of life begins to dim. And in that silence, something sacred awakens. A remembering of who you were before the world told you who to be. Of the young girl who loved to draw or write or wander barefoot in the grass. Of the teenager who dreamed not of being needed, but of being free. Of the woman who once felt her own magnetism, not because someone desired her, but because she felt herself alive. This silence doesn't ask for explanations. It doesn't judge your past. It simply opens space. And that's when you begin to understand. Peace feels better than company when the company cannot see you. Because too often, in trying to be everything for everyone, you became invisible to yourself. But here now, in the silence, you become visible again. Not because someone is looking at you, but because you are looking inward. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, you see a woman who is worthy of her own gaze. There's no need to fill every space with sound. No need to explain the joy of a quiet cup of tea alone. No need to justify the desire to cancel a plan just to sit with yourself. Because here in this chapter of life, you are not disappearing. You are reappearing. Slowly, tenderly, bravely. And that, dear one, is not loneliness. That is the soul returning to itself. So let the silence speak. Let it echo. Let it guide you back to the truth of who you are. You have earned this peace. It is not absence. It is presence. And it has been waiting for you all along. We all wear masks. Some are soft, molded by love. Others are heavy, forged in duty and expectation. But every mask, no matter how well crafted, carries weight. Especially the ones we've worn the longest. By 55, many women have worn the same mask for decades. The smile of the reliable one. The nod of the understanding one. The silence of the one who never complains. It begins innocently enough. A small sacrifice here, a swallowed truth there. You stay quiet when you're tired. You agree when you want to refuse. You hold the family together with invisible thread and call it love. But over time, that thread begins to cut into your skin. Jung called this the persona, the part of ourselves we present to the world. It's a necessary part of life. It allows us to function, to belong, to be accepted. But when the persona becomes a prison, when the role overtakes the soul, something inside begins to fracture. And you feel it. Not always as pain. Sometimes it's just fatigue. A kind of soul tired that coffee can't fix. Sometimes it's a bitterness you try to push away. Sometimes it's a numbness that whispers, I don't know who I am anymore. The mask no longer fits. It pinches at your edges. It chafes at your spirit. It turns your own reflection into a stranger. And then one day, in the stillness of your solitude, you feel the urge to take it off. Just for a moment. Just to see who's underneath. It's terrifying. Because the mask became a part of you. It protected you. It earned you approval. It made life work for them. But now it's your turn. To feel what you feel. To say what you mean. To stop apologizing for existing. This chapter of life is not about rebellion. It's about truth. And the truth is, you are more than who you've been for others. You are softness and strength. You are fury and forgiveness. You are mystery and memory and magic. And none of that fits into the old mask. So take it off. Even if just in your own bedroom. Even if just in the silence of your journal. Even if just in the breath before you speak. Let your face feel the wind again. Let your voice tremble and find its own shape. Let your desires rise from where they've been buried. This is not selfish. It is sacred. The world taught you to disappear behind roles. Now your soul is teaching you to return. To inhabit your own body. To honor your own needs. To recognize your own beauty, not the kind that fades, but the kind that deepens. The mask did what it had to do. It kept you safe. It helped you survive. But it was never meant to be permanent. You were not born to play a part. You were born to live a whole, breathing, complex, radiant life. So if today all you do is sit quietly and remember who you are beneath the mask, that is enough. You are enough. The weight of pretending can now be set down. And in its place, you will find something unexpected. Lightness, clarity, peace. Not the kind that comes from fixing everyone else, but the kind that comes from finally, fully being yourself. And that, dear one, is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your truth. There comes a moment, quiet and unannounced, when the light of peace uncovers the darker corners within. Not to shame you, not to frighten you, but to invite you into wholeness. Carl Jung called this inner landscape the shadow, the parts of us we were taught to deny, hide, or suppress. It's the anger we were told was unbecoming, the longing we were told was selfish, the grief we never had time to feel. And at 55 or 60 or 70, when the noise of others fades, the voice of the shadow rises. For many women, this is when unexpected memories begin to surface. Old hurts, past betrayals, choices we made to keep peace, to be accepted, to survive. It can feel like a betrayal of the peace we've worked so hard to cultivate. But it isn't. It's the doorway to integration. You cannot be at peace if you're still at war with your own past. You cannot rest if there are parts of yourself still locked in exile. And so the shadow appears, not as punishment, but as possibility. She says, "Look at me. I am you too." And slowly, in quiet spaces, you begin to listen. You remember the time you were silenced and realize how deeply it hurt. You revisit the version of yourself that swallowed dreams to raise others and feel the ache of that sacrifice. You allow the sadness, the resentment, even the jealousy, emotions once pushed aside, to speak. And they don't scream. They weep. They mourn the years they were ignored. This is not regression. This is reclamation. To acknowledge the shadow is not to become her, is to embrace her as part of your truth. Because you cannot claim your full power while rejecting parts of your story. The woman who is whole does not shine because she's perfect. She shines because she is real. And real women have shadows. This encounter is not comfortable. It may arrive in sleepless nights or sudden tears. You may find yourself grieving things you thought were long buried. But that grief is a cleansing. That sorrow is a softening. In our youth, we were told to be strong. Now the soul whispers, be honest. And honesty says, yes, I have been hurt. Yes, I have made mistakes. Yes, I have hidden parts of myself to survive. But honesty also says, I am still here. I am still growing. I am still worthy of love. The shadow teaches you to stop abandoning yourself. It asks, can you love even this part of you? The rage, the fear, the regret. Because if you can love what is hardest to love within you, then you are free. And that freedom is not loud, is quiet, is steady, is peace that no longer depends on perfection. This is how healing happens. Not in great epiphanies, but in moments of stillness. A breath taken without guilt. A tear shed without apology. A memory held without judgment. You begin to see your life not as a series of mistakes, but as a sacred map. Each pain a landmark. Each sorrow a signpost. Each shadow a teacher. And when you finally allow yourself to walk with all of who you are, light and dark, joy and ache, you become whole. You no longer need others to validate your worth. You no longer need to silence parts of yourself to be loved. You are love. You are the fire and the ash, the storm and the stillness, the wound and the wisdom. The shadow is not your enemy. She is your forgotten sister. And now, in this sacred chapter of your life, you welcome her home. Not to dwell in darkness, but to be free in the light. Let her rest beside you. Let her add depth to your joy. Let her remind you that peace is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of all that you are. And it is enough. You are enough. Whole. Seen. True. There's a home inside you that you forgot existed. Not the body you've lived in. Not the mind you've used to navigate life. But a deeper place, a quiet core that has been whispering your name through every decade, every detour, every disappointment. And now, at 55, 60, 70, the whisper becomes a call. Not to change, not to become someone new, but to return. Return to the woman you were before the world told you who to be. Return to the essence beneath the roles. Return to the self. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process by which we come into wholeness by integrating all parts of ourselves. Not by rejecting the past, but by reclaiming it. Not by fixing ourselves, but by meeting who we've always been. And that return, for many women, begins in solitude. Because in the silence, in the shadow work, in the unmasking, something ancient awakens. A memory of joy without condition. A sense of freedom that does not depend on approval. A hunger for authenticity that no longer tolerates performance. You find yourself drawn to new things or old loves long abandoned. Music, poetry, the feel of soil in your hands, the taste of your own laughter. You realize you don't need a reason to enjoy these things. You don't need to justify your desires. You just need to feel them. This return is not loud. It's not showy. No one may even notice from the outside. But inside you are blooming. You start saying no, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You start saying yes, not from pressure, but from joy. You start resting without guilt. You stop explaining your choices. You begin honoring your rhythms. For the first time, maybe ever, you listen to your own body not as something to manage, but as something sacred. You feel the pulse of your breath and recognize it as life itself choosing to stay. You dress for your own pleasure. You speak without the need to soften your truth. You walk not to get anywhere, but to be where you are. This is not a new woman. This is the real one. And she is not lost. She is returned. You may grieve the years spent away from her. The decades lived in service to roles and expectations. That grief is holy. It says, I remember myself. I miss me. You may feel anger. That too is holy. It says, I deserve more, and I am worthy of reclaiming it now. You may feel joy that feels unfamiliar. That's because you are no longer performing. You are living. In Jungian thought, the self is not a goal. It is the ground of your being. It is the place from which all truth flows. And it was never gone. It was only waiting for you to come home. This return does not require you to fix your past, only to bless it, to look at the younger you with compassion, to forgive what you didn't know, to celebrate the strength that carried you here. You are not starting over. You are beginning again with wisdom. And what you find here is not only peace, but power. Not the power to control others, but the power to be unshakably you. The power to wake up and not dread the day. The power to feel at home in your own skin. The power to sit in your own presence and feel full. This is what peace truly means. It is not emptiness. It is fullness without noise. A life aligned. A heart at rest. A soul returned. And perhaps the most beautiful part? You no longer need others to understand this. You no longer seek validation. You no longer bargain for belonging. You belong to yourself. You sit with your tea. You read words that stir your soul. You take long walks with the sky. And no one applauds. No one notices. But you do. You notice your breath. You notice your peace. You notice yourself. And finally, after so many years of being everything for everyone else, you get to be just you. That is not loss. That is liberation. Welcome home. To yourself. To your center. To the woman who is always there, waiting patiently beneath the noise. She is not asking for anything, only to be met. And now you have arrived. Peace is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new rhythm. And once it settles in your bones, it begins to flow outward. At first, it is still and quiet. You feel it in the absence of urgency, in the breath you no longer hold, in the slow, steady knowing that you no longer need to prove anything. You begin to understand that your presence, just your presence, is enough. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak to connect. You no longer act to please. You act because it aligns with your soul. This peace, the one you cultivated in solitude and shadow and return, begins to reshape everything. Your relationships soften or end. You no longer chase the people who don't see you. You bless them, release them, and open space for those who do. You give without emptying. You listen without absorbing. You rest without guilt. And in this way, your peace becomes your power. Not power over. Power within. You notice the sky more. You feel the seasons shift in your skin. You find joy in the small, sacred things, a warm mug, a kind word, a memory that no longer hurts. You are not immune to pain, but you are no longer afraid of it. When sadness comes, you greet it like rain. You let it cleanse. You let it pass. When anger comes, you honor its message. When joy comes, you let it dance through you without apology. Your peace is not stillness without feeling. It is feeling without chaos. And that, dear one, is a miracle. Because once upon a time, your days were filled with noise, with expectations, with the endless reaching for a peace that always seemed just out of reach. Now, that peace lives in your chest, in your hands, in the way you speak to yourself. You no longer seek healing as a destination. You live it as a state of being, and others feel it. Even if they don't understand it, they feel the calm in your presence, the quiet in your eyes, the soft strength of a woman who has returned to herself. You don't teach by preaching. You teach by being. And so your peace overflows into your family, into your friendships, into the spaces you enter. You become an anchor, a mirror, a light, not because you tried, but because you stopped trying to be anything other than who you are. You no longer run from aging. You embody it. You wear your years as a crown. Each wrinkle a story. Each gray strand a chapter. Each quiet morning a new beginning. This peace, your peace, is not for everyone. Some will find it threatening. Some will misunderstand. Some will walk away. Let them. You are not here to convince. You are here to live. And in living your truth, you become a living invitation for others to do the same. Your peace is a lighthouse for those lost in the storm, for the woman you once were, for the world that forgot how to be still, and maybe most of all, for the young girl you used to be, who needed to know that peace was possible. You are that proof. You are that presence. You are that peace, overflowing, endlessly, quietly, powerfully, and you didn't have to fight for it. You just had to come home to it. Let it overflow. Let it bless. Let it be. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are a river. You are a return. You are peace made flesh. There is a moment, not marked by any clock or calendar, when you realize you made it. Not because everything is perfect, not because life finally gave you what you wanted, but because you stopped waiting to be whole, and you simply began to be. This, dear one, is the celebration, not the party, not the applause, not the validation from anyone else, but the deep, soft joy of waking up as yourself and saying, I like her. The woman in the mirror has lines now, perhaps scars, perhaps softness in places once firm. But she also has eyes that have seen the full spectrum of love and loss, hands that have held generations together, and a heart that kept beating through it all. She does not beg for attention. She radiates. She does not hustle for worth. She remembers. And that remembering is the celebration. Because after all the roles, after all the years, after all the giving, you are here. Not as someone's mother, not as someone's partner, not as someone's fixer, but as your own. You walk into rooms without shrinking. You speak without rehearsing. You laugh without measuring. You say what you mean. You mean what you feel. You cry without shame. You take photos without needing to erase the years. You wear what feels good on your skin. You let your hair grow wild or not at all. This is not about rebellion. It is about liberation. You have crossed oceans of silence. You have lived with heartbreak no one saw. You have shown up when no one thanked you. You have loved through exhaustion. You have endured without applause. And now you dance. Even if only in your kitchen. You sing. Even if only in the car. You live. Fully. Not for them. Not for then. But for now. You take yourself out to breakfast. You sit in parks and feel the sun. You let yourself be slow. And this too is sacred, because the woman who honors her own life teaches others to do the same. You don't need to speak loudly to be heard. Your peace speaks volumes. Your joy gives others permission. And that, beloved, is legacy. Not what you leave behind, but what you live now. So yes, celebrate. Celebrate not what you've done, but what you've become. A woman who listens to herself. A woman who believes in her worth. A woman who doesn't just survive the years, but fills them with soul. You are not fading. You are rising into yourself. Not a second act. A deeper truth. And those who see you now, truly see you, they witness something rare. Not performance, but presence. Not perfection, but peace. Not what you gave, but what you reclaimed. You. So let this be the closing and the beginning. A celebration not of endings, but of arrival, of homecoming, of wholeness, of being. You are the woman you waited for, and she is here. Celebrate her. Every quiet morning, every kind thought, every boundary honored. Celebrate the you who rose from silence, who met her shadow, who returned home, who overflows with peace. This is the final gift, not to be seen, but to see yourself and love what you find. Welcome home again, and always, to yourself. If this journey spoke to something quiet inside you, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not for the algorithm, but to keep this circle of soul-lit women growing. Leave a comment if you wish. Sometimes, writing your truth is the first act of returning to it. You are seen, you are felt, and you are never invisible here.